Hello, investor. Welcome. This will be the sixth episode of Dara podcast. I'm your host, Dara. In today's video, we will discuss about a budget. Okay, budget preparation, budget 101. Okay, and the reason why I want to talk about it is because I see the implication, I see the usefulness that this can bring to students, to young people, to adult, right? I would say budgeting will be a useful tool for everyone in the future. Okay. All right. So first of all, again, define what is budgeting. Okay. So for me, budgeting, I would say we just manage money. We understand how the money works, how we spend the money, we get money in return. Okay, just the income and the expense. That's like the simple term of budgeting. Okay, later I will explain how this will advance to top priority and how you would use budget, right? For budgeting, it actually used by many people. Even you might not know yourself or be aware that you use budget or the term budget before, but when you check on your bank account, when you try to not spend on something because it's too expensive, or you're trying to get more money into your bank account. Just the idea of how much you want your bank account balance to change, it also accounts as a budgeting process, right? And so it's really fun, I would say, in a way, but also crucial, for us to take into consideration, right? So the purpose of budgeting actually, I would say, if you look into I will go through maybe the perspective of each entity, right? So example, we'll talk about students, organization, schools, business, right? So maybe I will go through that level so you can understand about it and how I see it, right? So for student, budgeting is mainly into how you spend your daily money, right? So mostly, I don't think that you would look into the income, things like examples, how you would earn more money because you're just learning, right? In the learning stage, unless you're hustling for something, and then you can think about budgeting later, right? I will try to talk about when you actually start a business too, because that's also interesting. So as a student, you don't really care about income that much. I mean, you do care a lot into your cash account. Your cash balance, right, in your bank. But for the cash inflow, I don't think that you do care about it as much as those doing startup, preparing a business, right? You're just in the learning stage. But if you're hustling, example, like you're trying to earn money per weeks, per day, per month, and then you can calculate those around, right? That's how it works. But yeah, for students, I would say, I believe that most of students actually, from what I heard and what I see, they don't really understand, I would say, the in-depth of budgeting yet. However, I actually am, I would say, how could I say this? I'm proud that they actually want to learn about budgeting, and they want to expand their knowledge into how they manage their money, right? They want to manage their money, but sometimes they don't know the word budgeting. So that is totally fine. At least they want to manage their own money, right? And budgeting goes, a lot of things. You can, look into personal budgeting, institutional budgeting. So there's a lot of things, right? Now I want to move to business budgeting, right? For business, actually much different towards students, toward younger people, right? Because for business, you actually will need to consider a lot of factors into your business, such as, there's a lot of department or functions in a business, right? You can't simply just have finance. That just it's not going to work, right? You need a lot of things like the marketing, the products, business partner, a lot of stuff into it, right? And so that's why I said it's much different compared to students or young people. We consider a lot of factors into it, right? And the purpose of budgeting in a business, I would say, doing three things, okay? And this is what I learned from my experience, from what I learned at schools, and also what I researched as well. Number one is taking the reality of what your financial health is. So you're assessing and you try to interpret what is the current financial health of your business, right? And how do you do this? You do this by assessing what are the incomes, what are the expense, and then making the net profit, right? But in a budgeting, it is more of, I would say, a mix of accrual or cash basis. In the future I try to make videos about accounting methods, but accrual mean that you don't record the money. So when there's an income or I would say a cash inflow, even though you don't receive invoice or any document, you still record it, right? Because you're making sale. For expense, it's the same thing. If you're not receiving any invoice, you're still going to record that expense. And for cash, you're going to record sale only if you receive money, and you only record expense when you spend on something. There's a cash outflow, an actual cash outflow, right? And so the reason why I said it's a mix of accrual and cash basis is because when you do budgeting, you actually consider the forecasting state and the reality state, right? So you have to constantly update your budget. Budget is also like a financial models, except it's just less complex, right? Financial models on another level, and it's taking into more consideration. For budgeting, you need to I would say do forecast, do scenario analysis of what are the income, what are the expense, and it's more like an accrual basis kind of accounting method, okay? And how is it mixed with cash? It mixed with cash when you update it in real time. So you would expect your income, example salary by this month, 200, or 100. And so you would try to record that, okay, but you don't get any slip, or it's not the end of the month yet, but you still record it, and that's called accrual, I would say. And when you actually make adjustment to the salary, example, you receive only 50 salaries, then that is like a cash basis kind of thing, right? So that's how it works, I would say. Another one, so that's point number 2, right? The reality of the budget, giving you the view on the financial health of the company, the business. Number 2 would be the cash inflow. And I would link this to number 3 too. Okay, number 2 and number 3. Number 3 is cash outflow. So the inflow and the outflow. So I want to get in depth about this real quick. The reason why I said it'll link together is because I believe budgeting, from my experience, is about balancing the income and the outflow. If you want to make a good budget, you need commitment. The difference between budgeting and forecast is that budget is you commit to it. Forecast, you're not. That's the difference. It's taken into account into the future, right? Plug number in. But budget is committed. You commit to the plan. For forecast, you're not. So you try to balance what are the income that you will earn in the future and the cost that you will spend as well. And so I define this as a term called working capital. Okay, if you don't know what is working capital, well, it is a concept in finance or accounting where you should have money to finance your business in a matter of time, right? Considering there would be expense, there would be costs along the way. So you need to have money, but also considering the cash outflow as well. So working capital, the formula, I would try to get into this a bit and not make it confusing to you. So working capital is equal to receivable day plus inventory minus payable. Okay, and if the working capital is small, then it is great. Okay, which means you can earn money faster. If the working capital is long or is a big number, then your company or your business would take times to earn more money. It's bad. And you can see how this relates to budgeting, right? For budgeting, you would try to look into the future. And so what's on the table would be your cash, your cost that will spend in the future. It's like, okay, I will pay for my food later, example, next week, but right now I have only $100 and I know that I will spend next week. Okay, so you have the asset right now. Your asset will be the $100 that you have, and the realization that you will spend next week will be the liability. Okay, so you can think about this. Account receivable and inventory acts like a money, right? A pool of money or funds that you haven't received yet. So in a budget term, what this means is that is the money that you foresee to receive in the future, but you're not yet receive it, which is accrual basis term. For payable, it's similar to receivable. It's just that it will take you can delay the payment toward the supplier, toward what or who you will spend that money to or on. And in a budget, you want to make sure you earn money fast while delaying the expense. It is a working capital term. Okay, that is how I see it. This is the reason why I want to pause a bit when it comes to budgeting in business. It's much different when you look into your personal budgeting or any students that want to do this, because you don't really get to care about the income, the salary, all of that, right? You're just mostly about the cost that you will spend. Okay, so at least you will have the sense of spending something. Okay, so you kind of budgeting how you want to spend that money, right? Now let's move. So that's like the concept, right? Number 2 and number 3 is about working capital, the cash in and the cash out. You want to make sure you have enough money and have the money fast to pay out, right? And also delaying the expense or the cost as long as possible. Okay, so you have money in your bank. It's really good, right? That is business term, business concept, all of that, right? Another point I want to go to will be government entities. Let's go to organization first before we get to government, okay? I have some experience in organization before, and I would say budgeting would be similar to business, but there's less factors around it. Okay, or I would say it's more simply easy to account because there's less factors that you will see. So let me give you an example to make you familiarize with it. Example, if business have a lot of spending, a lot of income, organization would have just 3, 5, 6 or something like that. Because I would say organization, they would have similar activities, but there's a lot of them, right? It's big scale. So you really have to be careful with those. Compared to business, I would say they also have large scale, but they have a lot of smaller activities that we have to consider. And I also want to add this, right? I've got to explain you and talk about this too. Budgeting is also used to determine or prepare you when there is an unexpected occurrence of payment. Example, like you in an urgent to start a project, or your project need funding really quickly, you should have the money to actually invest in those projects, right? It's like a fund that you collect and wait for it to be invested. That's the same thing, okay? That's the whole same thing. So you would try to do that. On an organization scale, you will help those things too, but there's much I would say there would be less risk than in business. So you don't have to, you still have to, but the risk would be small, and because of the risk management will be much better than those in business. In business, even if you are in, I would say, mature stage, because business, you know, they have the early stage, they have the growing stage, mature stage. Even if you're at the mature stage, there would still be risk, right? Why? Because we as a human being, we create business, and so those business would have risk because we as the owner, as human being, we tend to make, we're not perfect, right? So there would be risk, and also business is like a smaller units of profit generations that in an economy, right? And so if the economy fluctuate, the business would take up the risk to perform, to earn money, to spend on stuff. So to get back here, organization, they faces less risk, still high risk, but less risk than business. Okay, because I would say they have much better risk management. I would say that, right? For organization, they have better framework into budgeting. I would say that. For business, in the growing and in the startup stage, we would try to put up a category of income and expense as their, I would say, nature, not function. So what is nature? Nature is like you put up the expense based on their actual nature, their actual identity. So example, you have salary paid to your employees, you have your marketing costs, you have your I would say maintenance costs. All of those costs, if we talk in business term, we would lay them out. If in organization, because of the framework, because of the higher proficiency, they would try to group them together, and this is what we call as grouping in function. So organization is like function grouping, and business would be nature, right? So we try to make it transparent and clear as possible. This link to audit that I previously mentioned in my 5th episode, so you can check that out. Okay. I think we should talk about government now. So for government, budgeting is really important. It's a key source of managing if your economy is going to go boom or destroy. Why? Budgeting in government serves as a tool where you can leverage things using debt. Okay? And debt is really common in government because there's a lot of spending and borrowing happen, right? And so what you actually need to do in government is taking all the risks in consideration that would happen on a much larger scale between countries, and there will be a lot of statistic to analyze because there's the item in each, I would say, the income, the expense of the cost, they're on another level is high, and so you need to be really cautious about what you do, and you analyze a lot of stuff. And it will relate into debt as well. For debt, they will budget. Let's say they borrow something, they borrow money, like example $2 million. They would try to make use of that money and try to forecast and make budget of the returns from those funds. It's like you making an investment. You borrow something, you invest in it, you leverage it out, try to make return and pay back those to the borrower. Issuing a bond also considered into budgeting purposes, because there's a return from the I would say the business, right? So even though they pay out principal and interest at the end of the maturity of the bond, right, the government still have, I would say, the original par value bond price invested in those funds, so they can use that project in their budget. Let's say they issue a 2 million bond price. If example company A, they bought those bonds, the government will have cash funds, and so they can record it as the income. Okay, and so they will try to, mark the interest payment next year, 2 years later, 3 years later, and so it can affect those two. But to get it back, government would try to be really conscious, because they have a lot in their plates. There's big numbers. You're working with governments outside the countries, external factors, boom, boom, inflation's going high, what you should do when you invest, interest payment, interest return, interest income that you would get from bank really matters, right? And, not to mention, government also work with banks. If example, the economy is going great, right? Everything's going fast, and the interest rate will go up high, right? To reduce the inflation, but also to mark that, okay, there's a lot of demand. So again, government will need to look into these factors, right? I would say it's a lot into economic terms when it comes to government. Making budgets or working with budgets, they analyze a lot. And so budgeting, if I rank them down from the most important use to the least, I would say the government would be number one, right? They use a lot of budgeting and is their number one tool. After that, it would be business. Business, they use the budget to record the transaction, a lot of transaction, which they try to mitigate the risk, a lot of them, so they have to use them a lot as well. For organization, the reason why I rank it below, because there's already a lot of, I would say, risk management inside the organization already, which means you need less budgeting. You still need, but just less budgeting detail than business. And then it comes to personal budgeting, where I'm not just talking about students, but employees, employers, workers, they also need to consider how they want to earn their money, how they want to spend their money, because you need something in your plate. Okay, you have your money, but you want to create more, you want to add those numbers into your bank account, but also you don't want to spend or invest much money to the point that you just don't see any return, right? It's about saving and investing. So you invest your money, you try to get the returns in, I would say, progress portion of returns. But also you need to make sure that there would be less risk as well, right? Looking at the risk and the return, okay? You don't want to, spend a lot of money and don't get any money back, right? So yeah, I would say that's all for the podcast. To sum it up, budgeting is a really, really good tool for everyone to manage your money, when you should spend, when you should invest, and catching up the opportunities that have in hand to earn more money. Okay? Government spend the most time in budget. Number 2 would be business. Number 3 would be organization. Number 4 would be personal budgeting. Okay, us. All right. So I hope that you learned something new in this video. If you have any questions or recommendations or anything to add, feel free to comment down below. I will reach it out. Okay, I will reply you back and set tone for the discussion on the next topic or the budget thing as well, right? This topic. So yeah, that's all for the episode, the 6th episode, which talk about budget. I will see you in the next episode of Dara podcast.